Hi, everybody, and welcome to Unified, a podcast feed from First Church Belmont Unitarian Universalist. We'll be sharing sermons and stories, especially thematic content made new every week. We're so glad you're here, and for more information about who we are and opportunities to grow and deepen, swing by the church on Sundays or check out our website at uubelmont.org. And for now, enjoy this new content.
There is a way of understanding the divine as a still, small voice within. Perhaps this metaphor works for you. I find that it can be a useful image at times. I understand it as an invitation to turn inward and to notice, to empower myself and my capacities to understand the beating heart of hope that fills me. The turn inward, it can provide solace and it can provide comfort. What we bring to bear in our lives is informed by our inner worlds, and to take time to understand who we are within is remarkably important. But I need you to know something. I need you to know that the turn inward cannot be done without experiencing the world around us. There is a balance needed. A balance between our inner world and that world beyond ourselves. Both can be places of abundance, but neither functions well without the other. And this morning I want to focus on the outer world, that part of our shared existence that is beyond us. And in turning to this outer world, I invite you to consider one way that scientists gather data. There are some scientists who train their attention on the world around us through what is called indicator species. And it is this methodology that might be helpful for us. And I think this because there is so much to this world. There is so much that we cannot be so hyper-vigilant, so constantly aware of everything. Like I already said, we must balance our inner and our outer world. We cannot always be attuned to the outside. We cannot always pick up every scent that drifts by. When we bring intention to our lives, however, we can perhaps better tune our attention to particular indicators. We might choose these to pay attention to, or they might be so incredibly monumental or obvious that our attention is drawn to them. No matter the case, we can pay attention with intention. And when we do this, when we pay attention with intention, we are able to understand more about our world, more about ourselves, more about each other. We are able to act. In the world of environmental science, researchers use the term indicator species to label a particular species that reveals something about the ecosystem. The indicator species stands in for the larger system so that some general observation can be made and acted upon. Scientists might observe the common green shield lichen in a forest as an indicator of air quality. Or the spring peeper frog might be observed to understand if there's a ground contaminant. Or northern elephant seals might be studied to check on climate change's impact. There is something about each species that says something about the ecosystem it lives within. The individual species stands in for the larger story to be understood. And now, the northern elephant seal is an intriguing indicator species. There was a story NPR did way back in 2007 about the research on a colony of seals. And a team out of the University of California, Santa Cruz, has continued to research these creatures over the past 20 or so years. And one part of this research is to understand how these large seals might reveal something about climate change. You see, what happens is these seals are, for much of their lives, out in the Pacific Ocean, and they are long-distance swimmers. This is true both in terms of distance across the water, but also in terms of depth. They can dive thousands and thousands of feet over and over again for months and months. And they do this so that they can eat, so that they can survive. And what the research has shown is that when the water is warmer, the amount of time the northern elephant seal spends out in the ocean increases. But the amount of time spent swimming does not correlate with the amount of food gathered. So the bodies of these seals end up being smaller than what you might expect. And the amount of time on land, time for mating, for example, that decreases as well. So to understand the northern elephant seal is to understand how climate change is showing up in one part of our world. With greater distances covered, greater depths approached, this creature is yearning for survival. Through observing the adaptation, we can come to understand the health of the larger ecosystem. The methodology of observing the indicator species can help us approach our lives. At a time of rising authoritarianism in this world, at a time when a convicted felon will hold the office of the president of this country, at a time when housing in this state might not be guaranteed, there is a lot to pay attention to. There is simply a lot. To turn inward is an easy choice. But I fear if we choose to turn inward as an escape, if the choice is simply to disengage, we lend ourselves to getting good at disengaging. We lend ourselves to detaching. We lend ourselves to inaction. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we honor tomorrow, proposed this question in his letter from a Birmingham jail. He wrote, "Is organized religion too inextricably bound to the status quo to save our nation and this world?" Perhaps, he goes on, I must turn my faith to the inner spiritual church, the church within the church, as the true ecclesia and the hope of the world. But again, I am thankful to God that some noble souls from the ranks of organized religion have broken loose from the chains of conformity and join us as active partners in the struggle for freedom. What I hear in these words is a recognition of an inner and an outer world, that there is some relationship alive there, and that this relationship must be in balance. And when it is balanced, I recognize a stronger capacity to act. King calls out conformity. He calls out the status quo. And he does this because he has seen the signs of prejudice and inequity. And he trusts these signs. He trusts these indicators as an oppressive system. And this is a call for acting on those indicators. His is a call for changing this shared world. When we use the metaphor of the indicator species in our lives, I see us as bringing focus. If we pay attention to the indicators, if we trust the indicators, perhaps there's a way of moving through these next 4 years and beyond in ways that provide a surviving breath between us. One of the indicators I am mindful of as a queer human in this world and a queer person training to be a minister is where I am allowed to be me without fear of harm, without limitations. In solidarity with other marginalized groups, I want to exist in a world that is safe for me to exist in. And what I've noticed, perhaps you have too, is that there are some shifts happening in this country, shifts that complacency will allow to flourish. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms, changed their hate speech policies over the past couple of weeks. And these new policies, new in 2025, explicitly state that they are allowing certain hateful language to be used toward people in the LGBTQ+ community. This is an indicator. There's also a long list of companies removing or substantially changing their initiatives around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. These can be large multinational organizations that seem to be colluding about some made-up agreement that such programs are not supportive or are not important. This is an indicator. There's also a continuation of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation, including Don't Say Gay bills like the one recently passed in Ohio. This bill, now signed into law, requires educators to out LGBTQ+ students to their parents. This is an indicator. These three examples all emerge from my zone of intention. They are all known to me because I am paying attention to the indicators. The queer ecosystem and the environment in which LGBTQ+ people exist is operating with these indicators. And so, to survive, what do we do? How do we act on these indicators? We can swim out further like those seals foraging for food in warming oceans. We can extend our range. We find ways of existing that means traveling long distances. The organization Pink Haven is an example of this. Pink Haven is a collective of organizations and individuals who seek to care for trans and non-binary people. They support the relocation of a trans person to a safer state. The Lifeline means traveling further and further from where one might have called home, and closer to a safer space. We also swim deeper. We set up networks of support where we are rooted. We reach into our connective web of friends, families, and neighbors. We share our support with one another. The organization Point of Pride is an example of this. Point of Pride sends care packages to trans people around this country. And part of those care packages include cards of kindness and support. During coffee hour today, I invite you to join me in writing some of those cards. They can be simple, and there are examples available for you. This is a great way of deepening our commitment to this wide world, of not idly giving in to complacency. In that there is so much to pay attention to, we must bring intention to the indicators we tend to. And in community, we share what we know so that we can act, so that we can take care of each other, so that our connection to our inner world is tethered to the beating heart of hope in our outer world. So here we are, gathered on the precipice of an uncertain certainty. We are called to trust the indicators. We are called to keep attuned to the indicators in our lives and the lives of those around us. We are called to be active members of a community seeking to widen our circle of concern and seeking to keep love at the center of what we do and who we are. Amen.